My mother informed me over breakfast that she'd use my college fund to cover my brother's wedding, saying it so casually you'd think she was mentioning a shift in dinner plans. I was halfway through my toast, sitting in my childhood kitchen in suburban Phoenix, when she added that I'd understand because Kyle's happiness was important and I'd gotten scholarships anyway. What she didn't know, what she'd apparently never bothered to verify, was that the $50,000 she'd just admitted to stealing wasn't from my parents' savings. It was from a trust my grandmother had set up specifically for me, and Grandma Margaret was still very much alive, very sharp, and absolutely terrifying when betrayed. Before I tell you how one phone call turned a family breakfast into a legal nightmare, tell me, have you ever watched someone realise in real time that they've confessed to a crime they didn't even know they'd committed? My name is Harper Sinclair, and I learned that morning that my parents had stolen $50,000 from me to fund my brother's wedding to a woman he'd been dating for 8 months. The wedding had been 3 weeks ago. I hadn't been invited because, according to the group text I'd received, we're keeping it intimate, and you're so busy with school anyway. I was busy with school. I was finishing my master's degree in education at Arizona State University while teaching full-time at an underserved elementary school in Phoenix. I worked 60-hour weeks, lived in a cramped studio apartment, and survived on rice beans and the kind of determination that comes from knowing nobody's going to save you but yourself. Growing up, Cal had been the golden child. For years older, naturally athletic, charming in that effortless way that made teachers forgive late assignments and parents overlook curfew violations. I was the serious one, the one who studied while Cal partied, the one who got praised for being responsible while Cal got celebrated for being fun. When Grandma Margaret, my father's mother, told me at 16 that she'd set up a college fund for me, I'd cried. She'd pulled me aside at a family Christmas dinner and said, "Harper, you're going to do something important with your life. This money is to make sure nothing stands in your way." "What about Kyle?" I'd asked. She'd smiled sharp and knowing. "Kyle will land on his feet. He always does. You're the one who'll actually use an education on." I'd hugged her tight, smelling her signature perfume, feeling safe in a way I rarely did in my own house. That money had been my security blanket through high school, the knowledge that I could go to college without drowning in debt, that someone believed I was worth investing in. Except, I'd never seen the money. When I'd asked my parents about it before starting college, Dad had gotten vague. "Your grandmother's handling all that. It'll be there when you need it." When I'd called Grandma, she'd confirmed the fund existed and told me to contact the family lawyer Bernard Whitmore when I was ready to access it. But then I'd gotten a full scholarship to ASU. Academic excellence, first-generation college student, the works. I hadn't needed Grandma's money for undergrad, so I'd left it alone, figuring I'd use it for graduate school or a down payment on a house someday. I'd mentioned it to my parents once during my junior year, and Mum had said, "Oh, that old thing." "I'm sure it's still there. Your father would know." I'd let it drop. I'd been so busy, surviving college, working part-time, studying, that I hadn't followed up. The fund had become this abstract safety net I knew existed but never touched. Until this morning, sitting at the kitchen table during a rare visit home, when Mum dropped the bomb. "Harper, honey, I need to tell you something," she'd said, refilling her coffee with the careful casualness of someone about to deliver bad news. "Your father and I had to make a difficult decision about Kyle's wedding." I'd looked up from my phone where I'd been reviewing lesson plans. Okay, the venue he wanted was expensive, really expensive, and Melissa's family couldn't contribute as much as they had hoped. She'd paused, stirring sugar into her coffee with precision. "So, we used your college fund to help cover costs. It was sitting there unused, and Kyle needed it now. You understand, right? You got scholarships. You didn't need it." The words had hung in the air like smoke. I'd set down my toes slowly. "What college fund? The one your grandmother set up, the $50,000. We had your father access it last month." My heart had started pounding. "Mum, are you talking about Grandma Margaret's trust fund?" "Yes, that one. Like I said, you weren't using it, Anne. Mum, that wasn't your money to use." She'd waved her hand dismissively. "Harper, don't be dramatic. It was just sitting there and you're doing fine without it. Kyle needed help starting his marriage. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. That money was specifically for me. Grandma told me it was mine. Only mine. Well, families share resources. That's what we do. You'll understand when you're older. I was 26 years old. I'd been financially independent since graduation. I'd asked my parents for money exactly 0 times. And now I was being told I'd understand someday why they'd stolen from me. I'd found Grandma's contact, hit dial, and put the phone on speaker before Mum could stop me. Grandma answered on the second ring. Harper, what a lovely surprise. How are you, dear? Hi, Grandma. I have a quick question. I'm here with Mum. I'd kept my voice steady. Can you clarify something about the college fund you set up? Was it for me or was it for me and Kyle? There'd been a pause. When Grandma spoke again, her voice had gone from warm to arctic. It was for you, Harper, only you. I set it up specifically in your name through a trust with explicit instructions that only you could access it for educational purposes. Mum's face had drained of colour, and if someone else accessed it, say if Dad somehow got access and used it for something else, that would be impossible without forgery, which would be illegal. Harper, what's happened? I'd looked at my mother, watching her realise what she'd just admitted to. Mum just told me she and Dad used it to pay for Kyle's wedding. The silence on the other end had lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like an hour. When Grandma spoke again, her voice could have cut glass. Put your mother on the phone. Now, Mum had reached for the phone with a shaking hand. Margaret, I can explain. No. Grandma's voice had come through the speaker, clear and cold. You cannot explain. You cannot justify. You and my son stole $50,000 from my granddaughter. I'll be calling Bernard immediately. Don't touch anything. Don't call anyone. And Harper, her voice has softened slightly. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. This will be fixed. She'd hung up. Mum had stood there, phone in hand, looking like she might be sick. Harper, you have to understand. We didn't think. You didn't think it mattered. I'd stood up, my chair scraping against the tile. You didn't think stealing from me mattered because Kyle needed a fancy wedding? It wasn't stealing. It's family money. It was my money. Grandma set it up for me. Dad had rushed in from the garage, grease on his hands from whatever project he'd been working on. What's all the yelling? Your wife just told me you stole my college fund for Kyle's wedding. Dad had frozen, the colour draining from his face too. Harper, that's not. We were going to tell you. When? After you spend it all? It's not like you needed it. You got scholarships. Kyle needed help starting his life. And I don't. I'm working 60 hours a week, living in a studio apartment I can barely afford. Eating pasta every night because I'm trying to save money for a future you just stole from me. Mum had started crying. We thought it would be okay. We thought you'd understand. You thought I'd understand theft. You thought I'd be fine with you prioritising Kyle's party over my future. The doorbell had rung. We'd all frozen. When I'd opened it, Bernard Whitmore, Grandma's lawyer, had been standing there with a briefcase and an expression that suggested he'd dealt with this kind of family drama before. Miss Sinclair, I'm Bernard Whitmore. Your grandmother called me. May I come in? The next 2 hours had been a blur of legal explanations and increasingly panicked reactions from my parents. Bernard had been methodical, laying out exactly what had happened. Dad had forged my signature on documents, requesting early withdrawal of the trust funds. He'd used his position as the original account holder before Grandma had transferred everything into my name to convince the bank he had authority. It was fraud, clear and simple. The question, Bernard had said, looking at me with kind but professional eyes, is what you want to do about it. Your grandmother is prepared to pursue legal action to recover the funds and prosecute if necessary, but she wanted you to make that decision. I'd looked at my parents. Dad's sitting with his head in his hands. Mom's still crying. mascara running down her face. These were the people who'd raised me, who'd come to my school plays, who'd taught me to ride a bike. These were also the people who'd stolen $50,000 from me and thought I should be grateful they'd given it to my brother instead. "Where's Kyle?" I'd asked quietly. "At work," Mum had whispered. "He doesn't know we're telling you." "He doesn't know you stole from me to pay for his wedding." Dad had looked up. "We told him we'd saved up for it. That it was our gift to him." Of course they had. Cal got to be the beloved son receiving a generous gift. I got to be the ungrateful daughter, making a fuss about money I didn't need. I turned to Bernard. "What are my options?" "Criminal charges for fraud and theft, civil suit to recover the funds, plus damages, or we can demand immediate repayment and handle this outside the courts. Your grandmother prefers you make that choice." I'd thought about it, about Kyle's new wife, Melissa, who seemed nice from the few times I'd met her, about how criminal charges would destroy my parents' reputations in their community, about how much I wanted to make them hurt the way they'd hurt me. Then I thought about something Grandma had told me once. "Revenge is expensive, Harper." "Justice is priceless. I want the money back," I'd said, "all of it. Plus interest. They have 30 days. Dad's head had snapped up. "Harper, we don't have $50,000. We spend it, then you'll get a loan. You'll sell something. You'll figure it out the way you expected me to figure out paying for graduate school without the fund you stole. Harper, please." Mum had begged. "We're your parents. Parents don't steal from their children. Parents don't forge signatures. Parents don't fund one child's wedding with another child's future." Bernard had nodded. "I'll draft the repayment agreement. 30 days, full amount, plus 6% annual interest from the date of withdrawal, which comes to $52,500. If they default, we move to criminal and civil proceedings." He'd left, promising to send the documents within 24 hours. I'd grabbed my purse, ready to leave this house and maybe never come back. "Harper, wait." Kyle had appeared in the doorway, still in his work uniform from the sporting goods store he managed. "I just got Mum's voicemail. What's happening?" I looked at my older brother, the one who'd always gotten more, always been loved louder, always been chosen first. "Mum and Dad stole my college fund to pay for your wedding. Did you know?" His face had told me everything. Shock. Genuine. Shock. "What? No. They said they'd been saving for years. They said it was their gift to me and Melissa. It was my gift from Grandma, $50,000 that was supposed to be for my education. They forged my signature and stole it." Kyle had looked at our parents, betrayal crossing his face. "You said you saved up. You said it was from both of you." "We were going to tell everyone eventually," Dad had said weakly. "We were just waiting for the right time." "The right time to admit you're thieves?" I'd asked. Kyle had run his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognised from childhood when he was stressed. "Harper, I didn't know, I swear. If I'd known, you would have what? Said no, told them to give me my money." "Yes. God, yes, I wouldn't have wanted a wedding paid for with stolen money." "Wow, you got one." "Congratulations." I'd walked out, got in my car, and driven back to Phoenix. My phone had blown up with messages. Mum crying that I was tearing the family apart, Dad saying I was being unreasonable, Kyle saying we needed to talk. Only Grandma's message had made me smile. "Proud of you, sweetheart. Dinner this weekend." The 30 days had crawled by. My parents had tried everything. Guilt, anger, bargaining, pleading. They'd gotten a home equity loan, sold Dad's collectible car, cleaned out their retirement contributions. It had killed them financially, but they'd done it. Bernard had called on day 29. "The funds have been transferred back to your trust account with interest. It's done." I'd sat in my studio apartment, looking at the confirmation on my phone, and felt nothing. No victory, no satisfaction, just tired. Kyle had reached out on day 30. "Can we talk? Just us." We'd met at a coffee shop in Scottsdale. He looked exhausted, older somehow. "I'm divorcing Melissa," he'd said without preamble. I'd blinked. What? Why? Because when she found out how the wedding was really paid for, she lost it. Said she couldn't be married to someone whose family would do that. Said it showed what kind of people we were. He laughed bitterly. She was right. Kyle, you didn't know. I should have questioned it. I should have wondered where they got 50 grand. I wanted the perfect wedding so badly that I didn't look too hard at where the money came from. We'd sat in silence for a while. The coffee shop had been busy, people laughing and working and living their lives, unaware that ours was imploding. "I'm sorry," he'd said finally. "I'm sorry I was the golden child. I'm sorry they always chose me. I'm sorry I let them. It's not your fault Mum and Dad have favourites. But I benefited from it. Every time they praised me and overlooked you. Every time they funded my failures and expected you to just figure it out." He looked at me with red eyes. "I'm sorry, Harper. For all of it, I'd reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I forgive you. But Kyle, that doesn't mean things go back to normal. I know." 6 months later, I used the recovered money plus my savings to put a down payment on a small house near my school. Grandma came to the housewarming, proud and fierce. Kyle came too, without Melissa, trying to rebuild a relationship with the sister he'd taken for granted. My parents didn't come. I hadn't invited them. Mum still sent texts occasionally. "We made a mistake. Can't you forgive us?" What she never understood was that I had forgiven them. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean trusting again. It didn't mean pretending they hadn't shown me exactly where I ranked in their priorities. Grandma and I had dinner every Sunday now. One evening, over her famous lasagna, she'd asked, "Do you regret making them pay it back?" I thought about it, really thought about it. She'd smiled. "You know what the difference is between love and convenience?" "What?" "Love shows up when it's hard. Convenience shows up when it's easy. Your parents loved you when it was convenient, when you were the easy child who didn't need much. But when it came time to choose, they chose convenience over you." I'd nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in my bones. "But you, Harper? You chose the hard thing. You chose justice, even when it meant losing your family. That's real love. Love for yourself. Love for what's right." Now, a year later, I teach my students about fairness, about standing up for themselves, about knowing their worth. And sometimes, when a kid tells me their parents are using their birthday money for bills, or their sibling got something they didn't, I kneel down and tell them, "Your value isn't determined by what others provide you. It's determined by what you refuse to accept. If you've ever been told that family means accepting theft because blood is thicker than money, know this. Family should safeguard your future, not sacrifice it. And if they can't do that, you have every right to protect it yourself. Some people mix up love with convenience. Real love has a price. Real love doesn't take your future to pay for someone else's celebration. Real love appears when it's difficult, not just when it's simple. And if your family can't tell the difference, that's not your fault, it's theirs.